Okay, ZBA, we are live. We are recording. Phone lines will remain off. Go for it.
Thank you, Matt, and welcome to the Town of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals for July 11th, 2023 work session. We're going to start off with administrative applications. We have one this evening, and that is SHM Star Island LLC at 32 Star Island Road in Montauk, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-006-004-09, and that is to demolish existing decking, stairs, and ramp, and to construct stairs, landing, basement egress, and stone path. And we're going to ask Tyler to present this to us.
Sure. So this is on the main yacht club parcel of the board. Remember, they had an application for the swimming pool here a year or two ago, something along those lines. Where we're going to zoom in on is on the far south side. And they are proposing to remove, and I don't know if you can see it in gray very well, but there's a fairly large entrance here. They're proposing to remove that and then construct a small set of stairs here and a new basement entry here. You can see it a little bit better on this plan. So this is sort of the opposite direction. There's an outline here. That's what they're removing. And then constructing a small set of stairs here on the landing, and then again, a new basement entry. Fairly straightforward. There's also some, landscape pathway they're going to be adding in, and then they're going to be revegetating in these areas with some native vegetation as well. So very minimal amount of work. We're comfortable with it being processed administratively, which is why we brought it to the board.
Do you know, did anything ever happen with the last decision? Have they drawn building permits on that yet?
The one for the swimming pool, not that I'm aware of. I haven't seen any movement on that. They did the, on the property to the north where the boat launch is, they did the bulkhead repair work there. Mm-hmm. And they just actually they had us come out and check it for a CO, and everything was fine on that. And they resubmitted for bulkhead work elsewhere, but nothing on the swimming pool side of things that I'm aware of.
Any other questions?
No.
I think it's
Sounds
straightforward.
innocuous
Yeah.
enough.
I'm fine with it.
All right, do we have a motion?
You want me to do it? Except for the matter of SHM Star Island LLC, 32 Star Island Road, Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-006-004-09. Make a motion to allow this application to be processed administratively.
I'll second it.
I concur.
I concur. Thank you. Next, we move into our post-hearing decisions, and the first one is Sean Murphy at 17 South Flag Street in Montauk, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-28-6-16.2. Size and location is 18,753 square feet, located at 17 South Flag Street, Montauk Beach Development Core, map number 1013 in Montauk. The description is to construct a new 1,892 square foot two-story residence with 430 square foot of porches, sanitary system, retaining walls, and pervious driveway within 150 feet of freshwater wetlands. Relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420, and 4 variances are required. From 255-430, wetland setbacks are required. Variances of 19 feet, 12 feet, and 7 feet are required to allow the construction of the residence 81 feet, porch 88 feet, retaining wall 93 feet from wetlands where 100 foot is required, and a variance of 50 feet is required to allow the construction of a new sanitary system 100 feet from the wetlands where 150 feet is required, and any other relief necessary from East Hampton Town Code. Zoning district is A2 residence, zone X flood zone, and the secret class is type 2. Who had this one?
This was mine.
Okay, Terry, you want to lead us off?
Okay, the hearing date on this one was May 23rd, 2023. The applicant represented himself, Sean Murphy. The lot size here is 18,753 square feet. And we have the survey dated February 6, 2023 from Twin Forks Land Survey. Also architectural plans from Eva County, 8/11/2022, dated. This is an unimproved lot. And the address on this is 17 Flag Street, which is a road that is unopened. It's not even on the survey. I have difficulty dealing with when I went out there. But, so this is for a relatively, modest home of 1,892 square feet. And the benefits on this are that the applicant is agreeing to put in an access easement which goes over the property adjacent to the one where the home will be built and go out onto South Faber Street, which is also a partially unopened road in certain locations. The vacant lot the access easement will be crossing is also owned in same owner. So, that was a positive that will enable, if this is approved, that they don't have to go actually through South Flag Street. That would be more of a disruption to the terrain. The garage is proposed under the residence. Obviously, they're required to put in a new IA system. And this application is relatively straightforward. The planning department had no major objections. There were some suggestions in the TAM. As usual, as recommended for quartz gravel for the driveway. The applicant did object to that. He wanted wanted to use what he said was a cheaper product, but I think that's not going to fly. That, as far as I'm concerned, he has to get what is recommended, the pervious surfaces recommended by the planning board, which we use on all of these applications. There are two large wetlands in here toward the rear of the property, and the slope, the grading and the slope going at the rear of the property also slopes down quite a bit to toward those wetlands. So he did position the house in a manner that was pretty much the best available. There are four variances, but the first three are from wetlands for the residence itself, which is 19-foot variance requested. Porch at 12 feet, as seen on the survey, and 7 feet for the retaining wall. And the sanitary system itself requires a 50-foot variance. It's 100 feet from the wetland, but 150 feet is required for that. I find this application, it's a good application. As far as there were a couple of things that came up during the hearing. Number one, I'm not sure they're listed on the survey. There is a deer fence listed on the survey. The applicant did say it's his fence. I don't know that there was ever there would be no C of O on this property, right? Because there's no house. No house, okay. So the deer fence probably did not get prior approvals. So if it were to be allowed, I would recommend that they have to go get that to be legalized with the ARB. There was also a discussion that came up regarding the revegetation. This property is 100% cleared. However, due to the terrain change in the back of the house leading down to the wetlands that are back there, the planning department did recommend that there be a relatively small revegetation. They recommended 2,600 feet because of the topography sloping down along the rear of the property, and said that this actually, although it's 100% cleared, could be considered really mitigation because of that topography. Sanitary is being located in the most conforming location on the property, and I believe they need to, I think they got, actually I'm not sure if they got the DEC permit, but they will need to get a DEC freshwater permit on this. I am going to approve this application with the conditions of the gravel driveway and the quartz driveway, and with the revegetation. And I think it does meet the standards. Certainly, the variance requests are not outrageously large, they're relatively small, and the house is positioned in the best place on the property. As far as the NRSP, I think too, with the revegetation, that it meets the standards. Things were placed on the property. I think the minimum variance is required in order to do this. And I think that as far as the NRSP, that with the revegetation, that this too meets the NRSP standards, that it would not be much detriment or impact on the wetlands. So I'm looking to approve this application in its entirety.
Thank you.
Ed, you want to go? Sure. I'm going to agree largely with a couple of minor differences with my fellow board member. I think that in the positive here, that it is a reasonable size or a house to be putting on this property. I think that the fact that they're gaining access to an adjoining lot and not forcing us to open up or to force the issue of opening up flag and leaving that the way it is, I think is a net positive for us. I think that the conversation about the quartz driveway, I don't believe there is much difference, if any difference in expense. And I think that that's something that the town is look forward to and the planning department has asked us to do. So I'm going to do the same as my fellow board member and condition this upon the quartz driveway being implemented here in place from what they had hoped to do. I think that the sanitary is in the most conforming location. I think they're calling for a 50-foot, with a 50-foot variance on that. But, these are lots that are very difficult, and we're going to get an IA system in possibly the only place it could go on this property and make it work feasibly. There was the comment in the TAM that because it was 100% clear, there was no responsibility to revegetate. Plus, the suggestion was to help protect the wetlands to the south, that we require something to happen there that might help us to protect those wetlands. As was mentioned, the 2,600 square feet was suggested by the planning department, and that 2,600 square feet as a re-vegged area. I had raised the issue of a no-mow zone, and I'm going to say that I could live with a no-mow zone here. I think that an area that that is not disturbed and provides some sort of buffer in terms of the vegetation there is not bothersome to me. I understand the negative about the no-zone zones, that they can fill up pretty quickly with invasives and other things, but that's an area that's not currently disturbed. So I would hope for the best in that case. I think that, as was just said by my fellow board member, I think it's a good, strong application in the sense that on a lot like this that has some restrictions to it, we weren't asked to try to approve a 3,700 square foot house. We're not being asked to put in any kind of accessory structures. We're not being asked to maximize the usage of every square inch of the property. And so with the same two conditions, slightly different than my fellow board member, I'm going to approve this with the quartz driveway being required as far as I'm concerned, and that area can go into discussion here among the board, but I'd be comfortable with the no-mow zone there and not a replant at the as a buffer between that and the wetlands.
Thank you. Joan?
I'm largely in agreement with Terry and Ed. I have one or two little things to add that were mentioned in the TAM, and one was with respect to the statement is the applicant appears to be proposing 3 dry wells on the property. I would like to make that a condition that they're going to actually put in 3 dry wells, because I couldn't figure it out. And as the TAM observed, it would be beneficial to ensure that runoff from the parcel doesn't enter the wetlands. Terry flagged the deer fence, so that should be a condition that they legalize the deer fence. Another condition should be the attached sketch to the TAM associated with revegetation, and I can live with a no-mow zone. I know that they said they were tightly budgeted for this modest proposal. And so being sensitive to that, I think a no-mow zone would be satisfactory.
Thank you. Denise?
I'm in agreement with everyone. I think this project was very well thought out. I like the idea that the applicant is proposing an access easement on the adjacent parcel, which is currently under the same ownership. The sanitary system appears to be in the most conforming location. That'll definitely be a plus. I did bring up the revegetation during the public hearing, since the property is 100% cleared and is pre-existing non-conforming to clearing regulations. I think the applicant, I was hoping that the applicant would offer to mitigate the project by adding revegetation on the parcel. That would obviously be a benefit to the wetland. But I could think about living with a no-mow zone based on the issues he brought up in terms of his budget. I do think the fencing has to get legalized before the ARB. Again, I think the driveway should be composed of only a clean, local, water pervious quartz gravel. And I agree with putting in 3 dry wells. But I think a no-mow zone would be okay with me. And I do think this application is in keeping with NRSP standards 255-551, preservation of natural resources, and meets these standards for a variance. So I am approving this application.
Can I have a comment on dry wells? There are 3 dry wells that show on the survey.
I think Joan was referring
Are
to,
you referring to different dry wells?
she's
No,
referring
the
to the
TAM, the TAM says it
references,
appears,
yes.
so I couldn't put
The
together.
survey is showing 3 dry wells,
Showing
so
3
we're
dry
approving the survey.
So the
Okay,
applicant
so
appears to
then-
be
So the
proposed
dry
as
wells will be part of it.
beneficial.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's what, I read that too, Joan. But it is, if it's on the survey, well, good enough.
They show 3 there, yeah.
All right, Roy?
Well, I'm also in agreement with the board in approving this application. I just want to summarize. The driveway, we are approving, we are saying that a quartz,
Yes.
we're going with a quartz.
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yes.
I agree with the no-mow zone. The question on the deer fence, what's the extent of the deer fence? I'm trying
It
to.
goes around the whole property.
It goes around the
Right.
whole
Yeah, because he
property.
said he's not taking it out. He needs to keep it because he is going to be planting.
So we have a suggestion from Member Savarese that he gets approval from
Yeah, it'll be.
the ARB, but would he have to come back to us for an NRSP?
I mean, I guess we could,
Or, I mean, we could,
Can we
approve the NRSP and condition
Right.
that he gets?
Yes,
that's
approve
my
it
point,
on the ARB.
because it would fall under any other relief
Yeah.
necessary.
Right,
That's my point.
right.
But, so I think, I agree with
yes,
that. I think
that's
that,
the way you go.
I think if we can approve the deer fence, providing the ARB approves it.
I mean, there are recommended project conditions, so that would just be added to that.
Right.
J, if you go with what's currently on there. Now, the revegetation plan, would anybody be agreeable to less revegetation, but revegetation plan rather than the no-mow?
I mean, I initially brought this up during the public hearing,
Yeah, I know he's,
and
He talked about the budget and how it
Yes.
was expensive and that ultimately they would do planting
but
anyway.
because, I know, that's a hard
so
one.
I'll concede that then,
To the
no-mow.
no-mow?
Yeah,
Okay.
I guess.
So then we're unanimous in our
so-
decision.
Project condition E has to come out then.
We'll do it.
Well, it's a, following the outline of the re-veg plan, but designating it a no-mow zone.
Designating the area that would have been the reveg
Okay.
area. Okay.
That's what I meant to say.
Okay, next, we have Elaine Hyman at 37 Beach Avenue and Amagansett of tax map number 300-175-3-14.1. The size and location is 11,870 square feet at 37 Beach Avenue, Beach Hampton, Section 3, map number 1,287 in Amagansett. The description is to construct a 152 square foot first floor addition to the residence, a 54 square foot deck addition, an upgraded sanitary system and cellar entrance, and to remove an existing outdoor shower stone and brick walkway on a parcel containing freshwater wetlands. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 and 3 variances of 63 feet, 79 feet, and 63 feet from 255-430. Wetland setbacks are required to allow a first floor addition 37 feet, a deck addition 21 feet, and a cellar entranceway 64 feet from wetlands where 100 foot is required and any other relief necessary. The zoning district is B residence, AE flood zone, elevation 10, and the secret class is type 2. And this is member McGivern's application.
Yeah, the hearing was held on June 6th and closed on that day. We received 2 letters of support from the immediately adjacent neighbors, Friedrich Petzel and Anthony Bonsignore. I'm sure I messed up their names. Britton Bistrian presented for the applicant. She was also accompanied by Michelle Hugo of Zerks, Ortman, and Hugo Architects. The design plans from those architects were dated December 12, 2022. The survey by Gary Benz was last revised November 16th, 2022. And the sanitary plans were by D.B. Bennett, and they were dated January 4th, 23. I don't know if people remember this application, but the property was built pre-zoning and has a house in the front with a little carve out on the deck that they want to fill in, similar to an application we had before to make it part of the living space and fill in part of the deck. The changes to the residence and the deck, the first floor addition will add 152 square feet, and rounding out the deck will add 54 square feet to the deck. But importantly, and as noted in the TAM, the existing footprint will not change, so it won't increase the improvements to the property. The 2 wetlands with the property that are to the south that fall within the property, and the north and to the north, which is just beyond the property line. Now I'm running out of. This property came before the ZBA in 2016 to replace a cinder block foundation with a poured concrete and crawl space. And it's that crawl space that they now want to turn into a cellar entranceway. And the wood deck that they want to add to was originally approved under the 2016 ZBA decision where they converted a brick patio to the wood deck. I think I got that history right. The new IA system that they're proposing is in the most conforming location on the parcel, even though it's in the front of the property. They've proposed to remove the brick patio in the rear of the second structure on the property. And when I was there, it was under demolition. So I don't have any reason to believe they're not going to remove it. They're also proposing to remove the outdoor shower the outdoor shower, and there's a brick walkway to the outdoor shower and some stone around it, which will be replaced by the cellar entrance. They have another outdoor shower that's attached to the second structure on the property. The one thing I'd like to add as a condition of approval would be that they're proposing to revegetate the area to the southwest behind the second structure. It's a small area, but they didn't submit a revegetation plan, so as part of the condition of approval, they should submit a revegetation plan for this area. Otherwise, I'm looking to approve this application. I think it meets the NRSP standards. It is a property that is pre-existing and non-conforming. So even though some of the setbacks are, well, one in particular is a little large from the wetlands, they're going to leave the natural resources in a better state, given that they're putting in a new IA system. There aren't any reasonable alternatives uses to the property unless you want to tear the property down. And it's already a modest structure, at which they're not increasing the footprint of. And in terms of the variances, I think some of the variances are already, they're sort of already pre-existing because of the footprint of the house. So I'm looking to approve this application.
You just want the re-veg, it's in the northwest,
Oh, it's
northeast
the
rather, not
northeast. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, but just shows on the survey.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Ed, you want to go?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to agree with Member McGivern. I think this is was a reasonable application and a good approach on it. I think you start out by saying that there's no area on this property that would not require a variance if you tried to do almost anything here. So that we start with a given that any work being done here is going to require a variance. There aren't a lot of options to avoid getting a variance here. Our question is, has it been the best use of that? I think to begin with, in terms of a positive, the IA system is a strong mitigation because an IA system on a lot that small, it's hard to even find a place to put it. They managed to do it. It is at the front of the house, but nonetheless, it's in a location that they can make it possible. I think that both the addition and the deck fill-ins in the areas they're in areas that are already disturbed. I visited the site as well. The house has got a bit of a U, and they want to fill in the blank in the U between the two. Seems like a reasonable way to move forward with this. They're not adding bedrooms. They're not changing an awful lot about the house except to give themselves a little more room. The same thing with the deck. The part that was out of the deck was about a foot or 16 inches wide by about 8 foot long. I mean, it wasn't an awful lot, but it was filling back in an area that's already in a disturbed area that's surrounded with existing deck. None of those really give you pause. I think that the effort to remove the brick patio behind the house was already underway, as you said, so we could see that they were making progress in that area. Removal of the outdoor shower that's attached to the main house in order to accommodate the basement, the entryway. And the re-veg behind the studio and to the northeast, northwest anyway.
Directionally challenged.
And I agree that a plan is needed, but we can condition that. I think that there was a reasonable amount. It's a small 2-bedroom, 960 square foot cottage. We see these sites where we get approached about complete redevelopments. It's to encourage somebody to do what they can with what they have. And I think they made a reasonable effort to move forward with that. There were 2 letters of support that I thought came from neighbors, which was helping. And the fact that they're preserving the building and that they're doing what they can with what exists, I have no problem approving this application.
Thank you. Denise, you want to go?
Okay.
Terry, if you want to go first.
You want to go first, Terry? I don't care. Okay. You want to shoot for it? This is, I think, a very modest application. There's a limit for clearing and grading and ground disturbance associated with this project. The project and decking actually doesn't extend beyond the existing footprint, and it does not increase the number of stories of the residence. The applicant is, of course, proposing a new upgraded sanitary system, which is a plus. A question came up, the TAM addressed a question about the shed, but the shed was constructed prior to the adoption of zoning, and thus, was not an illegal structure on the property. The applicant is proposing to revegetate the area behind this building. In referencing the survey, I do want to make sure, as Joan said, some already looks like it's happening, but it does indicate the existing shower and deck on the north side is going to be removed. On the west side, existing stone is going to be removed. An existing pergola and deck to be removed. Existing sanitary to be abandoned. Existing brick walkway to be removed on the south side. And on the east side, their existing brick is to be removed. I'd just like to make sure that that actually does happen. I think this application is in compliance with 255-420, and I'm in favor of approving this application.
Thank you. Terry?
Okay, I am in agreement. I like this application. What in particular, we know the variances are large, but as everyone has already said, the property is severely constrained and there's nowhere you can put things in a conforming location. Going over to the survey too, the existing brick that was falling apart behind the cottage is going to be removed, and it's also part of the re-veg, so it's, it's definitely not going to be there. The brick walkway on the bottom, I couldn't find when I was there. I just wouldn't know if it said it was still there.
On the south side?
Yeah, on this one down here on the south side. And then the existing stone in the front that they're removing, I'm not quite sure if that was still there. But what I really like about this is that in order to add a little bit, they also removed a little bit of impervious surfaces and extraneous shower, we'll call it extraneous. And they're also adding 3 dry wells in the direction of those wetlands on the northeast. So I do think the variances are large. However, I think they are pretty much the minimum variances required for this. I think it's not going to disturb the character of the neighborhood. I also like that they kept it a 1-story structure. Everything that's going in has already been something else. It was either a deck being replaced with a deck or some decking and a pergola being replaced with the addition. And I think the NRSP standards are met by, they're offering the IA system, the revegetation, the dry wells added. And after the revegetation, the clearing will be reduced from 7,852 to 7,250 square feet. And that 1 deck and shower will be removed. So I think it meets all the standards of the variances and the NRSP.
I had one tiny thing to add, which I was looking for. They're removing one of their 2 outdoor showers, but I wanted to add as a condition that they add a dry well to their preserve the outdoor shower they're preserving. It wasn't clear that it had one.
Okay, so you're adding that?
Right, I agree with my fellow board members. I really don't have anything else to add. I think it was well covered. Next, we have Beachview One LLC at 372 Old Montauk Highway in Montauk, Suffolk, tax map number 300-88-1-14.1. The size and location is 48,438 square feet. at 372 Old Montauk Highway in Montauk. The description is to construct a 2,005 square foot addition to the residence, 375 square foot deck addition, pool fence, upgraded sanitary system on a parcel of land containing beach vegetation and a bluff crest. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 and 3 variances from 255-440. Coastal setbacks are required. Variances of 9.1 feet, 21.2 feet of 40 and 49.9 feet are required to allow the construction of an addition to the residence, 115.9 feet, a deck addition, 103.8 feet, and a pool fence, 75.1 feet from the bluff toe, where 125 feet is required, and any other relief necessary from East Hampton Town Code. The zoning district is A residence, Zone X flood zone, and the secret class is type 2. This is in Vice Chair's.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The board will remember that this hearing took place on June 6th, 2023. We were working at that time. We had several surveys submitted that showed the course of progress on planning this project, but the one we were working from that was most current was August 28th, 2022. This application was represented by David Kirst. We received building plans, 2 different sets of building plans. One set was from March 7th, 2022, and the other was May 27th, 2022. The latter one included the lower level, which included the 3-foot deck that we will have a discussion about. As was mentioned, this is calling for 3 variances. Immediately upon presenting his case, David Kirst said that a client or the applicant was willing to move the fence location that was under discussion to the edge of the clearing line, taking it out of any area that's currently vegetated, which we see it as a positive, moving it back out into what we had. There was some discussion about whether or not the clearing that we're seeing today followed the previous approvals on the site from a previous ZBA. And at that time, Tyler commented that it was very close to being the same. He didn't see there's any discrepancy from one to the other, even though it seems like it's a fairly large area when you're on the site. The 2011 approval of adding living space on the upper level floor at almost the same location was granted, and we're looking at one now that the square area is 1,875 square feet. At the earlier approval was 1,425. And the new proposal to enclose the stairwell that goes from the upper level down to the living level, the in-house level, it accounts for some of this difference going from 1,425 to 1,875. It represents much of the additional square footage that's enclosed here. Lower level addition is 137 square feet, and that's to enclose the bottom of that stairwell. This property, as you'll recall, is the house on the property is a bit sprawling. It has 2 wings, one wing with bedrooms and the other with their primary living space. And above that are areas for recreating. And we saw the large decks. They're going to take one of those areas that already exist and enclose it. So the primary area that they're hoping to add on to is already part of the structure. It's going to be on the 2nd floor of the structure. And as I said, there was a previous approval for that. The lower level addition, though, does block access from one side of the building to another, from the bedroom wing around on that lower level, except for inside to come through around that from deck to deck from outside entry. So you don't have to go back inside to get to one house to another. And so there was a request by them to add 3 feet of decking along the existing decking that's there now. That was something that we had a discussion on. What was mentioned at the hearing by Mr. Kirst was that any work done on the beach side, on the ocean side of the house that was required to add this decking would be done by hand. No machinery would be needed on that side of the building. There was no easy way to access it to begin with, and that all of that would be done by hand, and that the new deck, and if it were to be added, would be connected to the existing drainage system under the existing deck, and that concrete as was needed, would be poured from over the top of the structure by means of a pump. We received a building protocol on June 13th, 2023, and that protocol was dated June 12th to back up some of our concerns about whether or not we could be certain that that's the way in which this project would proceed, that we'd see very little if collateral damage on the beach side of the house. The other thing we asked about was whether or not the building was the floor plans of the building were consistent from 2011 approvals, and they appear to be. Let's see what else. We're not increasing the footprint of the house and here because they're building over the top of an existing decking. And the additional decking at the lower level is a concern. There was a question of whether or not it was an optional add-on by them that was unnecessary, if it was a functional need in order to make your way from one side of the house to the other. The prior clearing allowance that was on this property was $23,881, and they like to point out that the current clearing is 3,000 feet, almost 3,500 feet less at 20,453. The deck is definitely a move closer to the bluff toe, but it is over an area that's already disturbed earth, and it makes a certain amount of logic architecturally. When we were looking at this, if we're looking at this and we're looking at these, the three variances that are required, two of them take place in an area that's already disturbed, and the fence has already been agreed to be moved. Whether or not we should be allowing a 3-foot movement of the building or the coverage closer to the cliff was closer to the toe was really the primary concern and what we arrived at to discuss on this. I decided that the property, having been partially revegetated, and that the owners appeared to be good stewards of the land. I walked that property, you remember I had quite a few photos, and there were not areas that had been unnecessarily disturbed. There were areas that had been revegetated. There were areas that seemed as if what they were asked to do in the 2011 approval were being followed. I thought with that in mind, I felt there was a certain amount of trust between that applicant and the town in following through on a previous approval, and we were going to hold them to following through on the promises on this with their building protocols. I was not bothered by this application in the end. I thought that if you're looking to add on to a structure to make more space, and you can manage to do it over a previously disturbed area or over an existing part of the structure, which is what they did, that is sort of a net positive for us in terms of that. The big, large mitigation here is that they're going to be putting an IA system, and that'll be to the west of the property. They're putting it in what is basically the same spot as the existing, and so they feel that the disturbance to the area will be minimal in comparison to finding a new location, and that they will totally revegetate that area upon completion. Looking at the variance standards on this, in terms of the NRSP 255-5-51, whether preservation of natural resources in all structures used on the coastal structures we located upland, and that no natural resources, feature, or system will be diminished. I felt that this was an application that showed, and a presentation that showed that they were going to do the best they can not to do a disturbance of the natural environment. I thought alternative reasonable uses for the property are determined not to exist, and alternative designs of smaller buildings or structures. I think in terms of largely what's happened here, we have the deck to talk about, but I think that they did find alternative designs. An alternative design was not to add on, but to work within an existing framework. And then on the 255-8-50, whether or not the grant of this variance will cause an unavoidable change of the character of the neighborhood, I did not think that was the case, and that whether or not, under B, whether the benefits sought by the applicant be achieved by some other feasible method. I think that there is reasonable approach from them on this, and I would agree that that was the best opportunity. They gave us the best opportunity to move forward. And whether or not the difficulty caused to the applicant or request the area above was self-created. It's self-created in the sense that anytime you start any project, you're asking for relief, you've self-created. But I think what they've done here is come up with a very reasonable approach to adding on to an existing structure. It is large, it is sprawling, but that pre-existed. The fact is, as stewards of the land, I felt that there was a certain amount of trust established here, and I'm willing to approve this application.
Thank you. Terry?
Okay, I largely agree with my fellow board member. There were a couple of points that differ on a little bit. I too think that it meets the variance standards for the residence itself, and the pool fence I know was on the C of O, and the applicant is agreeing to move it to the clearing line. I'll have to accept that one. But as far as the decking, I'm in a bit of a quandary on that. I know the explanation by David Kurse at the hearing was that they needed to add that 3 feet onto it because of the way they're enclosing the stairs that they're enclosing from upstairs where they're adding the addition. And I think that's all good. However, I have a problem with it coming out 3 feet additionally from the point, if you look at the survey, it goes from where the pool ends on, I guess what's northwest, direction. It comes down and then it goes in the other direction easterly toward the end of the structure. And I don't know, I would like to limit that 3 foot for the pool, not for the pool fence, for the deck addition to be just that first line. I don't know if that's something that we could possibly do, if other people agree, and not have it go all the way across to the east. I do think for the same reasons it meets the NRSP standards, they're not really touching much the fence if they are going to move it back. There was one other thing that came up during the hearing about a drainage pipe that shows on the survey.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
David
it's
Kerr
within
said
the
he
scenic
thinks
easement,
it's not there. And yeah, they said if it exists, it's in the scenic easement and it's a
Right.
violation of the covenants that were established back in 2011. Now I have a note I wrote on the survey saying he was going to have the surveyor check that. And I don't recall getting anything. So I don't know if we could put a condition in there that gets verified one way or another. Overall, I'm approving the application. I don't know if we could restrict the piece of the fencing if everyone else is in agreement with that.
You mean the decking?
What?
The decking, you said.
What about the deck?
Decking.
Did I say fencing?
Yeah.
Decking. I was talking about the fence. Now I'm on the deck. Okay.
So you're denying the 3-foot deck extension?
Yeah, part of it.
Okay.
Can I
No,
deny part of it?
understand.
I guess I'm denying the whole thing then, unless we can make it.
The whole application or the deck?
Just the
The
deck.
deck.
Right.
And I do want a condition about the that drainage pipe that's
Yes,
down in
I
the,
had that in my
possibly down
notes
in the
too.
scenic easement.
Thank you. Denise?
I have to say I'm in agreement with Member Berger. I don't have a problem with the residents, the variance for the residents. The proposed addition is being located over an existing footprint of the building. The septic system upgrade is definitely a plus for the property's environmental constraints. I did have notes on the drainage pipe. I can't remember if he said it was removed or it wasn't, but it should be, and we should make sure that's noted in our decision. Pulling back the fence, they've agreed to pull back the fence to match the existing clearing line. The walkway also came up and was apparently part of the 2011 ZBA approval. It has not been constructed, but it is apparently not a part of this application. I do agree with Member Berger about the 3-foot deck extension. Just expanding seaward expansion of a principal structure, I think should be discouraged. The protocol submitted, the construction happening at the lower level will not require any machinery other than handheld power tools, and there will be no intrusion on the bluff area. So I do think I'm in agreement with Member Berger in terms of approving the pool fence and the upgraded sanitary, obviously, the addition to the residence, but I am not in favor of approving the 3-foot deck extension.
Thank you. Joe?
I'm in agreement with Ed. I went back and forth on the 3-foot decking, and I think to a certain degree, the 3 feet, the way it's designed, I mean, we're not architects, but it seemed like there was no reasonable alternative to connect one side of the deck to the other. And I think, given all the other positives about the application, the fact that they're not disturbing new area, they've put in very thoughtful construction protocol that, on the whole, we should grant them the variance because they're going to leave the property in a more improved state than they started out. And I think that's a positive. I just want to make sure that as conditions of approval, the protocol is attached. And that it's specifically called out that the IA system will be revegetated. And as already mentioned, that the pool fence will be moved to the clearance line. Otherwise, I'm looking to approve the application.
Thank you. As for I agree with my board members, as far as the deck extension, I would also approve it based on the fact that it is, whether or not part of it is allowing a safe passage around. I think design-wise, I think it's a de minimis request. I also think that we need to scrutinize moving closer to wetlands or NRSP. So I have no objection to the objections here. I think it's okay. But in this case, I think the design, the mitigation outweighs the approval of the deck.
Oh, I had one tiny thing to add. I'm so sorry.
Me too, I have one more thing.
While you're looking for that, I just want to add that in terms of the drain pipe, one of the things that happened later in the discussion was it was pointed out on the client's behalf, on the applicant's behalf, that any of the drainage that went in during construction in 2011 went to dry wells. And so their feeling was that pipe was not connected to any active portion of a drainage system, so that if a pipe existed, it probably pre-exists from another structure. It doesn't mean it shouldn't be investigated. It's just that was the explanation, that knowing that they had followed the building protocols in 2011, that all of that was hooked up at this time to dry wells. So I felt that pipe was probably a relic and not part of an active system at this time.
And I'm looking at it like nothing really should be in the scenic easement,
Yeah.
so it should be removed. The other thing I wanted to add, and I think Joan already said this, but I just want to double check. This building protocol is very well done, and I just want to make sure that everything is incorporated into the decision, because one of the things they say is any area that is cleared will be revegetated in accordance with a revegetation plan approved by the zoning board. To the extent possible, existing trees will be removed temporarily for access and then replanted. So these are things, very, that's a good thing. And I'd like to see that, as in the conditions of approval.
Sorry, I cut you off.
No worries. In the June 2nd letter from David Kurse, he addresses some of the runoff concerns which we had discussed caused by the additional decking, and he submitted the relevant section of the construction drawings by Bruce Nagel and Partner Architects dated March 7th, 2022, that shows that any water that falls on the deck will be captured and pitched back towards the existing drainage system. So no additional runoff will result from this additional decking. Just wanted, I thought that was a mitigating factor.
Thank you. We okay, council? You're okay? Thank you. Okay, next we have Menzel LLC at 12 Tyson Lane, East Hampton, Suffolk tax map number 300-189-6, 7.1. The size and location is 74,815 square feet. The 12th Tyson Lane map of premises owned by James Tyson. Lot 6, map number 4863 in East Hampton. The description is to construct a 326 square foot addition to an existing residence within a side yard, lot line setbacks, and outside the town's pyramid regulations. The relief sought is one variance of 14.4 feet from 255-1110 of the town code is required to construct the proposed addition 5.6 feet from the northern side yard lot line where a 20-foot setback is required. One variance of 10 feet 2 inches is required from 255-1172D of the town code to construct the proposed addition of 10 feet 2 inches outside the town's pyramid regulations and any other relief necessary. The zoning district is A5 residence, the zone X flood zone, and the secret class is type 2. This was in my review, so I'm going to lead off with this. The hearing was held on June 6th. The survey, fresh. Survey was 4/1/22. And the
By
revised.
Saskis.
Right, from Saskis, right? And there was a revised drawings of 5/15/23. The property is located on Tyson Lane. It's a property off a private access road down Tyson Lane. That's a private. I don't know if Tyson Lane is private. It's a common ride road in there. I don't think that's that critical to the decision. The applicant was represented by Lenny Ackerman, and the request for the variance, the addition is a 300 plus a square foot addition, and then as reported by Mr. Ackerman, it's what was necessitated the addition is a health issue for the owner. They're asking for a 14-foot variance with a 10-foot pyramid. One of the reasons for placing the addition where it is he said there was a substantial tree in a conforming location they did not want to remove. It's also in an area on the northern side of the house where it does not require an NRSP. There's no bathroom. What 200 square foot is is within the setback. It's a 300 and, what's the notice on that again? 340. It's 300 plus. I just want to get that straight. 326 square foot addition.
Yes.
The uniqueness of this property is what's going to establish my approving the application. The property to the north is in common ownership. That is the part of the side of the property that the variance request is asked for, as well as the property line. You see that on the property line, the northern property line is a skewed property line.
Yeah.
So that, to me, is part of this addition is what's in violation of, or they're asking the variance request for even the pyramid. I think the nexus for approving the pyramid is the fact that it is in common ownership with the adjoining property. It is a health requirement that they're looking to see, and the property line is skewed. With those conditions, I am saying that the variance, although I think the pyramid variance is apparently, it appears to be a substantial variance. But the fact that the property line is skewed makes it related to part of that addition. So I'm going to go through the variance standards, just go through it. Does the benefit of the applicant from grant of the area variance outweigh any detriment which grant of the variance will cause general health, safety, and the welfare of the neighborhood or the town as a whole? I'm going to say no. I think that the fact that the property is in common ownership and the fact that the request for health issues does outweigh the general welfare of the neighborhood or the town. Is the area variance to be granted the minimum variance necessary and adequate to alleviate the difficulty causing the applicant to request an area variance? I say yes, because they place it in a location where, as stated, does not require an NRSP and is an area that works without removing a large tree. We're in a conforming location, and the fact that is bolstered by the fact that it's common ownership. Has the applicant shown that the benefit accruing to him from grant of the requested variance outweighs any harm which will be caused to the neighborhood or the town, and that the requested variance is a minimum variance needed to alleviate this difficulty while safeguarding the character of the neighborhood and general welfare of the town? As stated before, I agree with that. It does outweigh. Will the grant of the variance cause an undesirable change of character of the neighborhood, or will it create a detriment to nearby properties? I will say no. The nearby property is in common ownership with this property, and although we are approving, and we brought this up in the hearing, that we are approving it in perpetuity, I still think it does outweigh. Can the benefit sought by the applicant be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance? The answer to that is yes, but I think that the reasons for placing it there are well verified. Is the requested variance substantial? But I do think the side yard variant is not is a very substantial variance, but I do think the pyramid variance is a substantial variance. This board doesn't look lightly on pyramid variances, but I think in this case, I'm willing to approve it. Will the grant of the variance have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions of the neighborhood affected area of the town? I'll say no. And is the difficulty causing the applicant self-created? This is yes, I do agree that it is self-created, but it does not weigh into the decision at this time. So with that, I'm looking to approve the application.
You want me to go? Okay. Okay, so I visited this property, pretty fabulous property. But actually I walked it, and when I got back there, we're talking about the pyramid and property line and everything. And I couldn't figure out, I said, where could this pyramid variance be needed until it finally sank in. And it does go back to your point of the skewed property line. I think at one time there was a lot change on this property, and somehow it ended up, if you could, well, you could see it on the screen, that it cuts right across. On
Diagonally.
Mm-hmm.
an angle instead of directly across.
And I think they did a good job bringing it forward on perspective views, right? On their
Yeah.
perspective views.
So, I mean, it's, the side yard setback is, 5.6 feet from the side yard. And the pyramid, which, yes, we rarely approve, is 10 feet 2 inches. But I too feel that I'm going to approve this. I think in this case, because of the property line and the common ownership and the pyramid, there's also, well, you can see it on the survey, that there's a 20-foot buffer right of way, right adjacent to that structure that's being proposed. So as far as perpetuity, that's not going to be touched.
I
That's
agree.
never going to be
I
touched.
agree.
So I too feel that it meets the standards, and the pyramid in this case is a very unique situation because of the ownership of the property and that buffer strip that exists on it. So I too am looking to approve this.
Thank you. Denise?
I agree with my fellow board members. As Chairman Deline already pointed out, there is a uniqueness to the property due to the common ownership and the skewed property line. This doesn't, I feel, set a precedent in any way. I believe it is in keeping with the variance standards, 255-850, which Chairman Deline already outlined, and I approve this application.
Thank you. Joan?
I'm in agreement with my fellow board members. I wanted to emphasize another sort of distinction is that the reason they wanted to build or extend this room on this side of the house is it was proximate to an existing bathroom area, which was an important consideration. Otherwise, if they had tried to place it on the other side of the house, it would have created more disruption as well as impacted the large magnolia tree, which they showed us. And so, to the extent it's a minimal alternative, it's a minimal alternative to the other alternatives, which would have involved more construction and also being on closer to wetlands. And otherwise, I agree with everything else everyone said.
Thank you. Ed?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with my fellow board members. There are a couple of points. One of the things is that when you look at that survey, you'll see that as exists now, the common ownership of the two lots, of course, factors into it. But it's not just that we're looking at this pyramid, and of course, this all can be moved later, but currently, part of the parking pad, a walkway, and the driveway are all on the northern lot. They have a right of way, but their driveway is not on the right of way. The driveway is coming down into that. So there's already some common use between the two properties. I think it's a frightening number when we see the pyramid violation. It was pointed out by the chair. We don't look favorably on approving these very often. When you look at that skewed line, which has been discussed, and you consider where the existing structure is for the northern house, it's a football field away. It's quite a bit of distance away. Now, it is always possible in the future, these properties can be divided and someone's looking to do something, but that's just in the tiniest back corner of this. And I think this creates a special condition here. I don't see anybody building in a spot on this property. Now, of course, once there's ownership, someone could approach us. But given all the conditions that have been laid out by others here, and I think the architectural consideration is one. The place is I visited as well, and it's immaculately constructed and maintained, and it makes perfect sense to put it there. They just ran into a problem for us with code. Wouldn't have encouraged it to be on the south side, and I'm not sure it would have worked in another spot. So I think there were conditions here that have already been laid out by others, but there was no NRSP needed. The buffer that's to the east that was pointed out, that we're not talking about this structure ever becoming a factor to the east. And I think it's a very a minimus problem. I think what goes on here in that corner would be very unlikely something that would have to be dealt with in the future if they subdivided these lots anyway, because of the fact that they've got the access as they do. So I'm more than willing to approve this application.
Thank you. I'll point out those double dunes system here is incredible. It's beautiful. Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to extensions of time. We have one that's Bungie 1G at LLC at 72 Old Westlake Drive, Montauk. Suffolk tax map number 300-20-5-19.2. It said it's a 2015 determination, but I recall that it was later than that in my tenure, which
Yeah,
I
it's
think
written up
was,
as 2018. I guess there was a question if it was 2018 or not, but I believe that's correct.
Yeah, I think so too.
On the memo was accurate. But this was for a constructed two-story residence, 1,600 square feet, 800 square foot of first and second story deck and sanitary system on a parcel labeled titled wetlands. We visited the property. We didn't find any changes in the environmental conditions on the lot. So we're comfortable with the issuance of an extension of time.
okay with it.
Okay, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, concur.
Okay, I'll make a motion. All right, for Bungie 1G LLC at 72 Old Westlake Drive, Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-020-05-19.2. Make a motion to approve the extension of time.
Second.
Okay, I'll concur.
Concur.
I concur. Thank you. We have the draft minutes of June 27th, 2023.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the draft minutes of June 27, 2023 for the Town of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
Concur.
I concur.
I concur. Now move into resolutions. Our first one is Farrow Beach Incorporated at 3 South Lake Drive, Montauk, Suffolk tax map number 300-32-3-14. Who handled Farrow Beach?
I do.
Okay, we'll give a brief description and then make.
Farrow Beach was an application that came in front of us for approvals for some structures that existed. This was a former, it is a current resort area, but it was built as a series of small vacation units, and they were looking for approvals on decks and on some of the structures and usage on one, and also deck on a residence. They were offering as mitigation for that in the entire property. They were putting in an IA system and going to do a significant amount of revegetation along the lake. This sits right on Montauk Lake. They were also looking for a parking area to the south of the residence, which was closer to the highway, but also within NRSP jurisdiction for wetlands. We approved the variance requests for the structures that existed in the decks that were asked for. We did not approve the south parking lot, which was requested where they were looking for 7 additional parking spaces there based on both the history and the sensitivity of the area. Motion? I'd like to make a motion in the application of, or this the resolution of Farrow Beach Inc., 3 South Lake Drive, Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-32-03-14 to accept the determination as written.
Second.
Concur.
Concur.
Concur. Thank you. Next, we have Shaggy Shack LLC at 774 Montauk Highway, Montauk. Suffolk tax map number 300-49-4-5.
Great, I didn't see Shaggy Shack.
I don't think we
Didn't see
did that.
that.
Yeah.
Yes.
No,
No,
See
I
a
didn't see a
decision.
I
determination
didn't
on
read
that.
it.
Oh, we didn't see it, so we'll table that till
Table,
determination.
okay.
Oh, that's right.
It hasn't been
was not-
done yet.
It has, that's what I was saying. I was like, I
Scared
didn't
the
see
hell out
it.
of me.
Well, it's on
I
the-
have,
It's on the.
I have it. I guess it just didn't
Skipping
make it.
All right, so
Just did it?
No,
Oh.
it was done. I don't know why it wasn't emailed to you. though.
Oh, okay,
I
yeah,
didn't-
nobody saw it yet.
I didn't read the Lori Kemlo one, because,
No, Tim, we're going to table.
This table
Okay.
until the
On the
25th, I
request
think.
of council, we're gonna
Okay.
table that. So next we have Jonathan and Linda Sawyer at 64 Squaw Road in Springs, Suffolk tax map number 300-75-1-8.
Okay. The purpose of the application was to allow existing decking reconstructed as a slate patio, a new spa equipment, relocated pool equipment, arbor over patio, walkways, relocated AC outdoor shower, expanded driveway, and the clearing of beach vegetation to remain on a parcel of land containing tidal wetlands and beaches within the side yard lot line setbacks and outside of the town's pyramid. The relief sought was a natural resource special permit, and there were 15 variances requested for this application. Most of the structures were built without building permits, so let me just get to what the board denied was the new spa, the spa equipment, the arbor over the patio extension, and clearing of beach vegetation. The work denied with regard to the new spa equipment, arbor, patio extension, and clearing, that was the description of the work. The relief approved was for variances for the decking reconstructed as slate patio without the northern extension, relocated pool equipment, walkways, relocated AC outdoor shower, and expanded driveway. Conditions of approval were a revegetation plan covering and an additional 5-foot buffer to the bluff crest, including species size and spacing consisting of a majority of woody vegetation. Shall install a dry well for any runoff caused by the use of outdoor shower. And I think that's it. So I'll make a motion?
Sure.
In the matter of the application of Jonathan and Linda Sawyer, I make a motion that we accept the determination, that we approve the determination as written.
second,
I concur.
I concur. Thank you. Next, we have Sand Highway LLC at 146 Middle Highway, East Hampton, Suffolk, tax map number 300-146-5-11. This was in my area, so, and we've been advised by council to read the entire resolution into the record, public record. So I'm going to do that at this point.
Take a deep breath.
And how
Want a
fast
cup
can I
of
read?
coffee?
yeah, how much do you have to read?
Yeah, it's a few pages.
We can't adjourn it until next time?
No.
It won't take a few. This is the
don't wanna
last
do
one we have
that.
to do.
Just
Last
go
thing.
off.
Oh, okay.
Only the last thing. The findings of the fact and the determination of the board. The findings of the fact and determinations made herein are based on all documents contained in the board's record together with testimony presented at a public hearing held on May 16th, 2023. The appeal. The applicant, Sand Highway LLC, the applicant, the owner of a 14.2 acre property located at 15 Middle Highway, East Hampton, New York. The property appeals from the determination of the town's principal building inspector, Ann Glennon, dated April 11, 2022, that found the applicant's stated intention to reclaim its mining site within nature preserve, sanctuary, and/or wildlife habitat was not permitted on the property under the town's zoning law and applicable ordinances. Among other things, the building inspector determined that while a nature preserve or sanctuary is permitted in a residential A3 zoning district where property is located, the applicant could not self-designate its property as a nature preserve sanctuary because only town-owned properties can be designated for inclusion into the town's nature preserve following a detailed municipal process requiring town board approval, which the applicant has not pursued. 2, the residential A3 zoning district does not permit wildlife and aquatic habitats as conforming uses. And 3, in any event, all activities requiring the construction, creation, enlargement, or filling of any artificial man-made water body exceeding 10,000 square feet requires a natural resources special permit, which the applicant has not obtained. Give me a second. B, the standards for board review of interpretations of provisions of the town zoning code. Town zoning law 255-830A1 gives the zoning board of appeals jurisdiction over applications brought by aggrieved persons from interpretations of provisions of chapter 255 zoning of the East Hampton Town Code made by the building inspector. Pursuant to number 2, pursuant to town zoning law 255-830B, the scope of the board's review includes but is not limited to, number 1, whether a change or alteration involving a nonconforming building, structure, or lot renders the same more or less nonconforming or constitutes an expansion thereof. Number 2, whether a change, activity, or alteration involving a nonconforming use renders the same more or less nonconforming or constitutes an expansion thereof. Number 3, whether an alteration in a special permit use constitutes a substantial expansion thereof, necessitating issuance of a special permit, and whether an alteration of any other structure or use is a substantial expansion as defined herein. Number 4, whether a particular use is a permitted or prohibited use under the terms of this chapter in a particular district. Number 5, the meaning of one or more words of the text of this chapter. 3, town zoning law 255-850A1 provides that the board shall keep in mind the findings, purposes, and goals of the town's comprehensive plan and the purposes of the chapter 255 as set forth in Article 1 and otherwise other parts thereof, as well as the findings of any local law enacting or amending the language at issue. The board shall follow any specific standards or limitations set forth in Chapter 255 which govern the questions and shall give great weight to the above factors as indicative of legislative purpose and intent. The board's findings. Number 1, the board has considered the submissions of the applicant, copies of various litigation documents submitted to the file by the applicant and the town, the prior testimony by affidavit of the town's building inspector, the public hearing testimony of the town's building inspector, the public hearing testimony of the town's chief environmental analyst, Brian Frank, and all other comments and submissions made by the public. The board notes that while the applicant provided written submissions to the board in advance of the public hearing, the applicant did not appear at the public hearing and did not controvert any of the testimony provided at the public hearing. Number 2, this board hereby affirms the building inspector's April 11th, 2022 determination in its entirety for the reasons that follow. Number 3, the applicant has taken the position that its reclamation of its mine with a 6.05 acre lake to a maximum depth of 110 feet below the groundwater table will transform its non-conforming mine into a conforming land use as a nature preserve, sanctuary, and/or wildlife and aquatic habitat. The property is in the town's A3 residential zoning district. The property is not town-owned. As the applicant's submissions confirm, Sand Highway LLC is the private fee owner of the property. Number 6, the applicant has not applied for the inclusion in the town's nature preserve pursuant to Chapter 182, Article 2 of the town's law. Number 7, the applicant has not applied for a natural resources special permit pursuant to Section 255-420 of the town zoning law. The building inspector correctly determined that the applicant's vertical deepening of its mining operation to the point of creating a 6.05 acre lake to a maximum depth of 110 feet does not change the non-conforming use of its property to a conforming nature preserve or sanctuary for the following reasons. Number 1, as a sanctuary, in quotes, standing alone is not included as a permitted use in the A3 residential zoning district. As a result, that use is prohibited and unlawful in the A3 residential zoning district under section 255-240 of the town zoning law, which provides that the failure of a land use to be listed on a use table shall mean that the use is prohibited and unlawful in the use district to which the table applies. Number 2, while Sand Highway contends that nature preserve or sanctuary are listed as permitted uses on the use table in A3 residential zoning district, the board concludes that the readily available definition of nature preserve in the town's laws, together with the various town code provisions governing the establishment of nature preserves in the town, collectively confirm that the property does not qualify as a nature preserve or sanctuary. 3, the nature preserve is defined under Article 1, Section 182.3 of the town's laws as any area of land or water owned by the town which is formally dedicated to being maintained as nearly as possible in its natural condition. Emphasis applied. Number 4, only town-owned properties can be designated for inclusion into the town's nature preserve following a detailed municipal process that requires town board approval. The property is not town-owned. As the applicant's submission confirms, Sand Highway LLC is the private fee owner of the property. Accordingly, the property does not qualify as a nature preserve for this reason alone. Number 5, the applicant's man-made construction of an artificial lake also contravenes the stated definition of nature preserve in section 182.3 of the town's laws, which clearly contemplates that a nature preserve be free from disturbance or artificial development and instead retain its primeval character, nor is it proposed to be maintained as nearly as possible in its natural condition. To preserve endangered, threatened, or special concern or rare species of flora or fauna, unique geological or hydrogeological features, wetlands or features of scientific or educational value. Number 6. Moreover, even if the property were town-owned, that alone would not establish that it is a nature preserve as defined in the town's laws. Designation as a nature preserve requires a formal nomination and dedication process before the town board set forth in Chapter 182, Section 182.11 of the town's laws. No such process has been pursued by the applicant or the town. 7, Section 182.11 of Chapter 182, Article 2 of the town's laws also sets forth a detailed process with various criterion that must be satisfied to approve town-owned property for inclusion in the town's nature preserve. As a testimony of the town's chief environmental analyst, Brian Frank, confirmed the property would not satisfy this criterion even if it were town-owned, and the applicant has failed to set forth any credible evidence to the contrary. Building inspector also correctly determined that, this is now number 9, the building inspector also correctly determined that the residential A3 zoning district where the property is located does not permit wildlife and aquatic habitats as conforming uses as the same are not included in the permitted use and use table. The applicant's creation, number 10, the applicant's creation of a man-made 6.05 acre lake to a maximum depth of 110 feet, regardless of the manner in which the applicant labels such use of its property, would not constitute a conforming land use permitted as of right, because such use would require a natural resources special permit under section 255-420E3 of the town's zoning law. As Mr. Frank attested during the public hearing, the creation of a lake that intersects the groundwater table requires a natural resources special permit. Under that one, number 1, section 255-420E3 of the town's zoning law provides that a natural resources special permit is required for constructing, creating, or enlarging, or fulfilling, or diminishing in size any artificial pond or other man-made water body which exceeds 10,000 square feet in surface area, or which, regardless of size, is situated in the groundwater table. 2, contrary to the applicant's arguments on this appeal, its submissions before New York State DEC unequivocally confirm that the applicant's activities on the modified mining permit will require a natural resources special permit, as the applicant will be constructing a 6.05 acre lake to a maximum depth of 110 feet below the groundwater table. See example, Mine Land Reclamation Permit Report dated February 6, 2019. See also New York State DEC Modified Permit specifying the creation of a 6.05 acre lake with a depth of 100 feet below the groundwater. Number 3, the applicant cannot undertake these activities on the site without obtaining a natural resources special permit and establishing compliance with the specific standards and safeguards set forth in 255-551 of the town zoning law. Under section 255-551, this board has the discretion to issue or deny natural resources special permits. Number 4, the applicant has not applied for a natural resources special permit under any of the aforementioned provisions. Accordingly, regardless of the manner in which the applicant labels its intended reclamation of the site as a lake, nature preserve, sanctuary, wildlife habitat, or otherwise, the applicant must first obtain a natural resources special permit. Unless until such a permit is granted, the activities contemplated are prohibited under the town zoning law. Number 5, to the extent that the applicant claims that the town zoning law provisions governing natural resources special permits are superseded by the mine land reclamation law, the applicant has not challenged the legality or constitutionality of the zoning law provisions governing natural resources special permits and cannot do so on this appeal, notwithstanding its argument is lacking in any merit, as the town's provisions governing natural resources special permits do not purport to regulate the actual operation and process of mining and thus are not preempted by the mine land reclamation law. Matter of Gurnett Asphalt Products Incorporated versus Town of Sardinia, 87 New York 2D. Matter of Hunt Brothers Incorporated versus Glennon, 81 New York 2906909. Town of Riverhead versus Haulers Incorporated, 255 AD 2774. Now, number 11, the applicant has further alleged that the building inspector and ZBA lack jurisdiction over the issues raised in the building inspector's April 11, 2022 determination. The applicant has not cited any legal authority to support this position, which is in contrary to established New York law, confirming that the ZBA has primary jurisdiction to interpret the town's laws. Matter of Jordan's Partners versus Go-Ringer, and the matter of Ashley Homes of Long Island Incorporated versus Odia. The disposition of application. The board makes the following determination on the applicant's appeal of the building inspector's determination dated April 11, 2022. The zoning board of appeals affirms the determination of Ann Glennon, principal building inspector, dated April 11th, 2022. All concur: Roy Deline, chairperson; Edward Johan, vice chairperson; Teresa Berger, member; Denise Averies, member; and Joan McGivern, member, dated July 11th, 2023. With that, I'm going to ask if we all agree to the determination as written, and I'll make a motion. Make a motion on behalf of Sand Highway LLC, 146 Middle Highway East, Hampton, Suffolk, tax map number 300-146-5-11, to adopt the resolution as written.
I'll second it.
Concur.
I concur.
Thank you. Finally, we're going to table Lori Shemla at 460 Further Lane to a future
The
date.
25th, I think.
And with that, I'm going to ask the vice chair to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to close the East Hampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals work session for July 12th, 2023 at 8:03 PM.
Second.
I'll concur.
By 11. What did I say? I
My
said the
husband's
12th?
birthday, that's the only reason.
That's the 11th. I wrote the 12th. Sorry. Happy birthday.